everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Harnessing Patient-Reported Outcomes. It's now my pleasure to introduce the host of today, Ursula Gacharek, Associate Principal at Strategic Consulting in Cytel. And without any further ado, over to you.
Thank you, Michael. A warm welcome from me to everyone that we have on the line. I was able to check a little bit on how many or which people we have on the line, and I'm very happy to say we have a lot of people from Northern America, Canada, and US, and actually from very many different countries in Europe all over scattered. But we also have a special welcome to those people from Asia and Australia even, for whom it must be a very late or very early time. So thank you very much for having an interest in this talk and joining us here on our presentation. And so I'm very happy to introduce you to my colleague, Gilles Berdaud, who has actually 25 years of experience in the field that he's now going to talk about, namely, or where patient-reported outcomes are very relevant, namely in market access, health economics, and real-world evidence. I have been working with Gilles in several projects meanwhile, and I'm always impressed by his attention to detail in combination with an impressive general overview of things that are most relevant. He is a medical doctor by training and has a PhD in epidemiology and biostatistics, and he was head of biometrics in a CRO and at pharma in the beginning, and thus gained a deep understanding of the statistical questions in the pre-authorization phase of drug development. But then he changed over to the post-authorization phases, and now for 25 years he works in the fields of health economics and outcome research. So with that background, he's obviously in a very good position to talk about the things today on patient-reported outcomes and what one should know about them and take consideration for them and do with them right from the beginning in drug development. Gilles, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ursula, for these nice introductions. Hello, everybody. Thank you for participating to this webinar on patient-reported outcome for a small-sized biotech. In the next hour, I will explain to you why patient-reported outcome is so important in early clinical development phase, how to use patient-reported outcome to justify price of new chemical entity, what are the key considerations for small-sized biotech in incorporating patient-reported outcome into their clinical development plan, and also what type of positive outcome can the company drive from incorporating patient-reported outcome. Then I'll do my best to convince you that patient-reported outcome is a key driver to get control of the three pillars of market access. You know them, which are high prices, no volume restriction, and quick access to the market. And you know that if you are able to control these three pillars, so this will drive the value of your company. Let me start with some background data. If I tell you that development of drugs or medical devices is something which is complex and uncertain, I think that you would all agree. It's complex by nature. Health is something which is complex, but it's also complex by regulations. You have to go through different steps: market access authorizations, HTA agency, pricing and reimbursement, and it is also uncertain. There are a lot of drugs that were candidates that never reached the patients. So that's the way investors have to think about a biotech. So if you agree about these type of things, you have to differentiate yourself from competitors, from competing drug as well. So I think you have to think efficiency. So having drugs which are cost effective that will represent breakthrough therapy is a must today if you want to reach the market safely. You have to think also about innovation, and we'll see later how patient-reported outcome might create some sort of innovations if you are delivering similar results than the competitors. So it is likely to translate in products that will have a price which is very similar to the other one. So you won't get premium you might want to have. And you also have to think patients, and thinking patients, thinking patient-reported outcome as well. So you have to look for a company with R&D programs that focus on diseases that aren't currently well treated. Patient-reported outcome, this is the economic value driver. If you are looking about the demands from the payers, so they have demands which are very, very different from what is expected to get new drug approval or market access authorizations. They have specific data in terms of health economics and outcome research, and these encompass patient-reported outcome and quality of life measures. If you don't meet all these needs, so you will be facing difficulties, and this will impact, as stated at the beginning, on the 3 pillars of market access. So you will have pricing decrease, you will have delayed access to the market, and the value of all of the asset will be down, and also you'll be also depriving patient from access. So patient-reported outcome, and we'll see later on why, is one of the economic drivers, and this should be considered by you biotechs. Lastly, patient-reported outcome will allow you to maximize the net present value of your drug. Present value, this is a measure of all future cash flow over the life of a treatment of the drug which is under relations, taking into account expenses but also turnover, and it also counts about whether the expenses occur now or in the future, and whether the turnover is now or in the future. So NPV is the driver. Patient-reported outcome, sorry, is the driver of net present value. Okay, so it's very important for a small company to be very, very precise about patient-reported outcome, because you don't have a pipeline which is as big as the one of big pharma. So you have to make sure that the drug you selected in your pipeline has the right level of patient-reported outcome, just to make sure that your drug will get the best NPV possible. So that's, and if you don't follow this type of advice, so then you will have suboptimized commercial potential for your product, and so you will be you'll be losing value of the drugs which is under development. Early pricing is a key driver to control net present value along clinical development. You have to be able to do pricing activities from the beginning, because it will have several leviers in terms of the company management. This will participate to the portfolio management, so you will be able to fix priority among the different NCE, new chemical entity you are developing. You will reduce uncertainty when you will switch to phase 3, because you accumulate information, and this information will be transferred to the next phase. And by reducing uncertainty, so you will also reduce you will increase the net product value. You will be able to communicate to investor about the asset value of your new chemical entity. So it's not only about survival, but it's also about patient-reported outcome. And when you will be starting negotiating with any people willing to buy your new chemical entity. So you will improve transparency during the negotiation. It's very important to have a very clear claim to say my drug provides this type of benefits, and I did early pricing, and based on this early pricing, so I'm able to tell you that the value of the drug is that amount. So here, patient-reported outcome plays a major role in pricing as being the measure of health benefits. Then comes the point is how are we going to measure health? Because we said up to now that so we will improve health. And basically, it's something which has been stated very, very simply by the World Health Organization. So the definition is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. And that's something which is very important. So we want to live longer, but we want to live with good quality of life. And basically, any goods that will impact on one of these three above dimensions, that will become a candidate for the healthcare market and industrialization. So if you are able to impact on physical, mental, and social well-being, so then you have a drug which is likely to be accepted by prescriber and by patients. And the way to measure physical, mental, and social well-being, this is patient-reported outcome, because nobody better than the patient will be able to say, I'm physically able, I'm mentally well, and social able to do things. So this is why patient-reported outcome is the scientific way to measure physical, mental, and social well-being. Having said that, so we have to fix rules. And if you're looking about now how pricing is made among all the countries, so there is something which is very clear, is that the price is based on value, okay? And this has been stated a long time ago by Weinstein. So the healthcare resources are limited, okay? So we cannot offer everything. And so we have to find roles to associate new resources. And the suggestions from Weinstein was to say that there should be a relation between cost and expected benefits. So that's the basic rules. And then they created something which is a cost effectiveness analysis. And they say that the incremental net healthcare cost should be linked to the incremental health benefits. And based on this index, I should be able to fix priority. It means that if I bring something more to the patients, okay, so then I should have an increased premium. And then Weinstein also stated that quality of life concerns is something which is very important, and this should be incorporated to adjust life expectancy. So the point from Weinstein here is very clear. So we are not only looking for extending life. We also we also have to provide drugs or medical devices that will maintain the quality of life at the best level. So value-based pricing, this is the gold standard today of pricing in most of the Western developed countries. So that's created new barriers. So you to access the market. So you know the MAA on the A barrier. So this is quality, safety, efficacy, and then you have two items that comes on the top to access the market, which is effectiveness, and we'll see that later on. And efficiency, this is only the way to associate cost to effectiveness. And then there is another one, which is affordability, because there are some countries there where even you have you can justify the price. You have to make sure that payers, so they are able to afford the new chemical entity. And so the point here, which is very important, is that patient-reported outcome, this will cover all these barriers to access the market. This is important for the MAA. This is important also for HTA. This is also important for pricing and reimbursement, and this is also important in affordability. So it means here that patient-reported outcome, if you do not provide information, whatever the time of the phase, of the clinical development plan, you will be missing opportunities. So that's having patient-reported outcome in early phases is something which is key, because you have those 3 barriers to go through. So then, QALYs has been defined as the economic standard of measuring health value. There are a lot of discussions. We could have also discussion at length whether this is fair or not. But if you're looking about most of the countries, Western developed countries, so QALYs is the way to measure the impact of a new chemical entity. What it is, it's something which is very, very simple. It follows the Weinstein principle. It weights life expectancy by quality of life. And then you have a new measure, which is 1 QALY. And 1 QALY is something which is very simple. This is 1 year of life with full quality of life. Okay. So the cost utility, which is based on QALY, is the gold standard of economic evaluation in most of the Western developed countries, and it is today used to allocate additional resources to finance innovation. So that's one of the major principles of value-based pricing. So how does it work? You calculate cost per QALY. So here you have on the vertical axis you have costs and you have QALY, and you have to compare yourself to standard of care. Standard of care is something that has to be precisely defined. And then your new chemical entity could be either more efficacious, so you will provide additional QALY to the patients, and then when you will be fixing the price, so this will increase the cost of caring for the disease. So the question here is in which type of area you will go, and this is, and you'll see why it is very important to start this type of evaluations at the various early stage. If you provide QALY at a cost which is lower than the standard of care, so that means that you are underestimating the net present value. So this is a very important signal. So you just have to increase the price to join the negotiation area. More importantly is to avoid to have a new chemical entity who is providing less QALY and at a higher cost, because that means that the net present value of this drug is likely to be negative. So it's very important to identify this type of cases, because here you have a couple of decisions to be taken, like I should stop, like positioning on the drug is not good, like I don't have the right type of outcome. So that's something that you need to identify very early, because you as a biotech, so if you are in that situation, so you will have a lot of difficulties to convince investors to invest in your phase 3 programs, if this is the question. So then everything here then is in the negotiation area. So you are providing more QALYs to the patients, and so then based on that, because this is value-based pricing, so you would like to get additional cost, and you will calculate this incremental cost effectiveness ratio, which is the incremental cost to get incremental utility. That's a very, very simple formula. So based on that, so you will see, you will be able to say that my drug costs 10,000 more euro to get 1 additional QALY, and this is based on that that you will be starting the negotiations. So by incorporating patient-reported outcome in early phases, so you will be able to have very, very early this value of this ICER, and then you will be able to see whether at the fixed price, whether you are cost effective or not. If you are cost effective, so you're likely to join the market. If you're not cost effective, so then you will be facing difficulties during the price negotiations, and you will have lower price or delay access to the market. So you have your ICER based on your phase 2 programs because you did incorporate patient-reported outcome. You have a small economic model, not a very complex one, because you are in early phases, and then you have to benchmark your results against figures that are available. So if you're thinking about the World Health Organization stated that a drug is likely cost effective if the incremental cost effectiveness ratio does not exceed 1 of 2 or 3 times the GDP per capita. So let's take a country like France, for example. GDP per capita is about 45,000 euro. So if you believe in this WHO statement, it means that all drugs whose incremental cost effectiveness ratio would be lower than 45,000 euro per quality is likely to be accepted as cost effective and might have chances to go through a good price. The cost effectiveness result is made public in other countries, like in the UK by NICE. There is no publicly available result, but then you base your decisions. You use previous decisions just to ensure that this is cost effective, based on the fact that something that has been given to a computer should be given to you. So previous decisions might inform you about what has been considered as cost effective. And then there are other countries where cost utility is not considered as ethical. So that's the way. But the major point is that so you need to go through qualities, and the way to get a quality, so you need a patient-reported outcome. So you need to be able to document about activity of daily living, quality of life, and utility. Shall you wish to check whether your drug is cost effective at end of phase 2. Then on the top of that, so you can calculate at a fixed price whether the probability that the payer will accept your price. So for example, here, if you know that if the willingness to pay of the payer is about £30,000 per quality. Okay, so you go here and you see that, so if your incremental cost effectiveness ratio is lower than this value, so you know that based on the price that has been fixed here at £10,000, so you can see that the probability is about 85% that this price would be accepted. So that's what I mean here. So you can even enrich your net present value by using probabilistic net present value and using information coming from this type of modeling. Okay, so here so what we saw up to now, so we saw that a patient-reported outcome is the way to measure health state of patients, and we'll see that there are ways to connect patient-reported outcome with pricing. Okay, and these contribute to the NPV of your drug. Now let's go through some definitions. Here I will focus only on some specific words. This is something which is obvious, but it has to be made very, very clear. So patient-reported outcome has to be directly reported from the patient. So if you want to collect patient-reported outcome, don't ask the investigators. It has to be collected without interpretations. There might be a strong disagreement between the patient point of view and the doctor point of view. So here we are not interested about what the doctor thinks. We are only interested about what does the patient think. So this is without interpretations. So if you are thinking about this type of thing, so you have to make questionnaires. These questionnaires are given to the patient, and the patient has to report this type of thing. So that's definitions of patient-reported outcome. I will present you two type of questionnaire. So I use two very simple questionnaire, and questionnaires which are very often used. So here you have an example of generic health-related quality of life questionnaire, which is the short form 12. Generic, it means that it covers all conditions, all diseases, with a generic health-related quality of life questionnaire. So you will be able to make benchmarks across different type of diseases. So what you can see here, this is a very short question, only questionnaire, sorry, only 12 questions. You can see that the way it's organized, something which is very simple. You are interested about health here, so then you have things about your activities. Here you are in the last questions. You are collecting information about the mental health. So this is a type of questionnaire that could be given to the patients, and such a questionnaire take no more than 5 to 10 minutes to be completed. What I mean here is that there are a lot of questionnaires which are very, very simple, and that will bring you informations without increasing a lot the pressure on the patients. Some points. You have a copyright here. So what does it mean? It means that this is protected by intellectual property. So you cannot use questionnaires without contacting the authors. And you have also release versions, so you have to make sure that you are going to use the versions. You also have to check that this questionnaire is appropriate in terms of languages, so you cannot ask German patients to complete an English questionnaire. So yeah, so there are a lot of phrases about transcultural adaptations of questionnaires. Then you have, so once when the questionnaire is completed, so you have to calculate a score. So you always, so when you contact the authors, so you just have to ask the algorithm. So here, so you have 4 components. You have 2 components in this. So you have the physical component and the mental one. And then you have 8 scores. So you just have to apply this type of calculations. And then you have several ways of reporting. So here I only took an example. So you are reporting as average. So usually here you are using a mixed regression models just to report this type of things. So what you can see here, so the message here, this is simple. You have a couple of things, there are a couple of expertise, but you know the way to report. So adding this type of information to a phase 2 program is not something which is a big deal. The other one is even more simple. This one is very, very important. This is EQ5D3L. And so it brings utility measure. So you saw that utility is connected to quality. EQ5D3L is recognized as a validated utility measure by most of the HTA agency and pricing and reimbursement authorities worldwide. So every time you have a drug which impacts on efficacy or on safety, but impact enough to be measured by EQ5D3L, this is something that you have to consider. You'll see that this questionnaire is very basic. You only ask about mobility, self-care, your activities, pain, discomfort, anxiety, depression. So you only have 3 boxes to answer. You have here the visual and analogic scale, and then so at the end, so you have one answer for the 5 dimensions, and you have a score which is connected to these 5 dimensions. You have a manual that explains the way to do it, and based on that, so you will be able to estimate, calculate. You'll be able to calculate QALYs. Here, this is an example of QALYs. So you have in the blue the QALY decline without the interventions. So and QALY is something which is very simple. This is only the area under the curve. And if you're thinking about the yellow area, so this is the gain. This is the incremental gain in terms of QALYs, and this is what you will be using to justify the price of your of your new chemical entity. And then you can make the type of diagrams so we saw before, and you will be able to simulate different prices and estimate pricing and reimbursement success at a fixed price. So one more time, very simple, very strongly connected with pricing and reimbursements. I will go very quickly on this one. There are a lot of different type of patient-reported outcome. You have some are generic of health-related quality of life, other are generic of a specific disease. They could be specific to a certain disease. You have utility measure, activity of daily living. So you got something like a list. And the point which is very important is that you have to make a choice. So if you think that your drug merits quality of life evaluations, even in early phases, so you have to have a clear understanding about the nature of the health benefits. So you have to fix hypothesis. You cannot use a questionnaire by chance. So you have to understand the nature of the potential benefits of your new chemical entity, and based on that, so you will be able to list and choose the instruments you'll be choosing. You have to compare against the standard of care benchmarks. So you will also have to know what is the effect of the standard of care or the questionnaire that you'll be using, and it has also to be connected with business objectives. Because you will have to deliver messages to the prescribers, to the HTA agency, to the pricing authorities. So here there are a couple of issues, but you can contract out these type of things, or you can search helps if you are not fully equipped. There are guidances. The FDA guidance is my preferred. It's really very detailed. I will not go into deep details, just focusing on the on some parts. So if you're thinking about point A, B, and C, here we are thinking about what is measure. Okay, because quality of life, it has to be specific. You are not measuring everything, so you have to focus on a couple of things. So everything here is about what do we intend to measure. Then you have a couple of things which are about the metric properties. What does it mean? It means that a quality of life instrument has to be metrically validated. Do not use instruments which are not metrically validated, or otherwise your results will be challenged. Very important. There are a lot of agencies which are requesting blinding to compare quality of life. So this is something that you have to consider. So here, the general protocol considerations, I think you need to follow them. If you don't, you will have to justify one. And then if I take a statistical point of view, there is two major issues. I don't want to list all the issues. There is test multiplicity, because you saw, for example, with SF12 that we had several dimensions. So you will have to find about which dimensions you want to favor. You have to cope with first risk control. And the other point I would like to focus on, but very quickly, this is missing data. In quality of life evaluation, missing data are never at random. If I don't want as a patient to complete a questionnaire, it means that I have issues, and those issues might be related to the drug which is under investigation. So these are two issues that are which are pretty well described in everything. So the message here is, I think this FDA guidance is a document worth to be read and taken into account. The point of view EMA is a bit less straightforward. They still say that the basis for the approval of a new medical product is its efficacy and safety in the given conditions. So approval is not related to quality of life. But then they opened the door, and they stated that in several life-threatening diseases such as cancer, Health-related quality of life may provide an important information, so you can't say less. But they did here open a door to the use of health-related quality of life in cancer, and then they later on, so they provided an appendix 2, which is a guideline on the evaluations of anti-cancer medical products in man. So, and then they went a step forward, and they recognize the importance of the patient's point of view on their health status, and it may be used in drawing regulatory conclusions regarding treatment effects in the benefit-risk balance assessment. So it's a bit less strict than what FDA is requesting. So, for example, I don't think that we have guidelines so far. I don't know them, but it looks at in certain diseases, at least like cancer. So this is something that becomes a must. So just think about now. So we saw two agencies, EMA and FDA. Just have a look about what could be some expectation from HTA agency. HTA agency, so you know this is country dependent. So every time you go somewhere, so you might have different type of demands. So there is not one single way to tackle all the HTA agency demands. But I think that I choose this one not only because this is France. I know the French one pretty well, the HAS, Haute Autorité de Santé, but because they stated something that is true, I guess, for all the HTA agency worldwide. Requests are on the same level than those developed for efficacy. So what it means here, it means that you have to manage health-related quality of life as you do for any other clinical outcome. It has to be of the same quality, and you have to provide information in the statistical analysis plan. If you do not put the same type of quality in terms of data management, data collection, etc., so you will be facing questions, and all the good work you did might be questions. And every time you have questions, so you're losing times in terms of access to the market. So please retain that if you want to go to a quality of life evaluation, so you have to develop good quality data. Just an example. So starting from MAA, EPAR. So it's the nivolumab in advanced melanoma. So for those who doesn't know advanced melanoma, so this is a disease with a life expectancy which is quite low. I think that most of the patients die after two years, and the probability to survive at 5 years should be about 95%. So that's a very severe disease. So we're typically in the end of life treatment. So just have a look about what EPAR was stating, what France was stating, and how NICE did use patient-reported outcome. So EPAR stated that nivolumab remain stable and close to baseline values during treatment as assessed by valid and reliable scales. That's a statement which is very important because it means that so nivolumab brings increasing quality of life with increasing survival with quality of life which is constant. So that means that the safety, the tolerance of nivolumab is good enough to let the patients have longer survival with maintain quality of life. So this is typically the type of things that are used in the field of cancer. Then, if you go to France, to the Transparency Commission, so they had to take the information from EPAR because EPAR is a public document, and what you can see here, so they started challenging the EMA statements. They were not very happy about the completion rate, And so they stated that the analysis was not conducted according to the intention to treat. But at the end, and I think this is because it was stated by the EPAR, so they had to recognize that this analysis did not evidence a negative impact on health-related quality of life, and they gave ASMR-free. ASMR is the way of rating the clinical benefits. ASMR-free, it's good enough to start premium. So what you can see here is that HRS has to follow the EPAR. So you see the importance of having quality of life statement into presented at EMA to get the EPAR, and they try to minimize just to try to put pressure on pricing. NICE is something which is completely different. The approach is based on cost effectiveness. So I think that they use the EQ5D. What's written here is that they use the EQ5D from the clinical trial, so it was a phase 3, and so you can see that the incremental quality is very high. So it means here that in a BRAF mutation negative patients, so you had an increase of 1.67 year with a full quality of life, and so they came up to a nice year, which is which is not very high, 7,346 euro per quality. And so then based on that, and other things also, but based on that, partially they recommended nivolumab in the treatment of advanced melanoma. So with this example, I want to show you that there are connections between EPAR and agencies, and that there are different ways to use quality of life evaluation. So here we are at the end of phase 3. So what I do recommend, and what we do recommend, is to do this type of exercise, but at the early phase in phase 2. Of course, it should be less complex, but you can have information that could be used like the information I show you. Let's go to operations and quality. Believe me, incorporating patient-reported outcome in the phase 2, it only impacts marginally its management costs. It's marginal, okay? Time to market access will remain unchanged because this is conducted in parallel, and it will have no impact on patient recruitment. I've never seen patient refusing to be included in a protocol because of quality of life. So the impact on patient recruitment will be minor, provided that you stay reasonable. If there is tons of questions, of course they will become crazy. But if you do things in correlations with patients, so this will not impact patient recruitment. On-site management, so you just have to make sure that patient-reported activities, are performed in parallel to clinical. So it increases a bit the manpower, but if you are able to manage in parallel, so you will get results at the same time than clinicals, and so you can manage both resources together. So impacts is not big. Okay, some recommendations now. I do recommend to follow the patient-reported FDA recommendations. You might follow them, but this one I used to follow. You have to ensure alignment between the patient-reported outcome instruments and your value messages. So value messages, this is the way you are going to address everything which is pricing reimbursement, but make sure that the way you choose the patient-reported outcome fits with your value messages, whether this is for HDR or for investor. So you want to reach an objective and make sure that this choice will fit with that. You have to use a validated patient-reported outcome question. I think this is obvious. Piggyback on the operational rules that have been developed for clinical outcomes. Very important, include quality of results into the clinical study report, just to make sure that this will be captured by EMA. Publish, and then develop an early and simple pricing model just to incorporate your patient-reported outcome to justify the economic value of your new chemical entity. So that's the last slide, I'm afraid. We are on time. So patient-reported outcome data collection has to start at early phase of clinical development. This will impact marginally on your organizations and the cost of clinical development. It's a key driver of pricing. So if you want to follow the NPV of your NCE portfolio, so it's very important to start pricing activities based on PRO, patient-reported outcome at a very early phase. So this is going to be early pricing. Is going to drive the economic value. You will reduce market access uncertainty at the end of clinical development. You will increase the net present value along clinical development, and you for you biotech, so you will be able to provide transparent communications to the investor. It's very important to be able to justify price, and just a final global communications this is a powerful instrument of communication. Patients, healthcare provider, regulatory agency, patient and reimbursement authorities, investor, etc. So this is what I want to share with you today. And now I will give the panel to Ursula, and I will take your questions.
Thank you very much, Gilles, for a brute force, I would say, with quite some detailed information, but also a very strong overview over what you have to consider and what patient-reported outcomes actually contribute to your market access from your new drug entity. And we do have at the moment 3 questions, and I will read out those questions that we have gotten in by the chat. Please feel free to pose more questions, and I will start now posing those questions that we have already in. So the first question is, what do you do actually if there is no universal standard of care to which you can compare your new compound?
Okay. Universal, there are a lot of diseases where there is no universal standard of care. Especially if you are working on unmet needs. If you have big unmet needs, so there is no universal standard of care. In that case, so you can start with some real-world evidence data, just to try to describe the best how patients are treated today. Okay, and when you'll be writing the protocol, so you will be able to describe what is the way patients are treated. Okay, it could be a mix of a lot of things, but you will have to select that from data coming from prescriptions, and then you will run something like a standard of care plus placebo against this type of standard of care, the one which is based on real-world data, against standard of care plus the new chemical entity. So whatever, you have to compare yourself to standard of care. If it's not defined by medical guidelines, so states from reality. And
the second question that we have here is, with which authorities should we engage early on or at all with the discussions to minimize the pricing and reimbursement uncertainties?
The issue here is that you are in an early phase, because we were considering a phase 2. So when you are making choices, you might be willing to have information from the authorities that will make decisions. Okay, and the issue here is that this is state regulated. There is no way to address all the elements from all the countries. So my advice here would be to select a list of countries where you think that business is important enough, or at risk, and even at an early phase, have some contacts with pricing and reimbursement experts, and just present your protocol, just to make sure that what you are doing is likely to be accepted. So what I mean here, so you need at least to go and see some experts or some people or some past payer. You don't need to, because you are at early phase, you don't need to go a full market access overview, but just try to focus on the big countries at risk. Try to gather what are the expectations. Also, have a look about previous decisions. Just try to make a case about where I am and how I'm gonna to achieve a good market access. So that's what I would do. I would advise. And the point here, which is very important, you have to be local. There is no way to have something that will cross all the countries. So select your countries and search for pieces of advice locally.
And how do you explain actually that the FDA engagement with patient-reported outcomes is higher than that of the EMA?
I think there are several reasons. So the first reason is that EMEA, so this is a pool of countries. So you have the 27 countries from the European community, which are sharing a unique way to access the market. But pricing and reimbursement, this is something which is decided at the country level. So it's very difficult for countries to accept that they will be to match informations related to pricing and reimbursement in the EPAR. And we saw that patient-reported outcome is one of the driver. So I think there was no very strong incentives to have this type of information being very precisely described into the by EMA. I think they went to cancer EMA because here we have a true challenge about benefit risk assessment. So chemotherapy is something which is providing good increased survival, but we want to make sure that quality of life is not jeopardized. So that's maybe why they decided to go this way. But they don't want to have too many statements in terms of quality of life into their EPAR. And this is, I think, here you have to consider this like a chance. So if you use quality of life in instruments, if you put that into the protocol, if you put that into the CSR, and if you got the outcome, so you will have data from quality of life reported in EPAR, and then I think you could use this as a levier when you will be facing HTA agency, because everything which is written at the EMA level has at least some influences in terms of HTA agency. FDA, I guess they wanted to make sure that the work is properly done. They are a single country. This is something which is important to which is politically important, to make sure that patients are satisfied with the drugs, and they have private insurance, so the pricing is completely different. So and this is why I think that they wanted to fix things purely technically. So that's a different point of view. But EMA, this is where we have to consider that having quality of life information from very early phases, being constant through the next phases, getting that into EMA is something that would and that will help for any pricing and reimbursement purposes later on.
We have one additional question that came in. Oh, no, it was. Have you seen it, Jill? It's the implications of the last questions imply they are very different, or there may be very different protocols developed for the different agencies when it comes to these aspects. Is that true?
Yes, there are implications. There are implications, and they might be they might be disagreements. So you might have demands from countries which are different from another, and you will have to make decisions. You will have to make decisions. This is a risk management. So you have to fix the countries where you want to access the market quickly, where you get big turnover, where you think you have high probability to get a quick reimbursement, and then you will favor those countries. But you will not be able to satisfy everybody, because pricing and reimbursement, this is a national prerogative. So that's the way it works, and this is true all around the world. So Australia is different from Germany, etc. So that's the principle of market access. But be sure, at least that from early phase 2 till phase 3, that you have a drive, try to maintain this quality of life line, and then you are likely to be successful.
So thank you, Jill. We are now at the end of the time. So once again, thanks to everyone and thank you very much for including the patient-reported outcomes as early and as scientifically valid as possible into your drug development